ففهمنا سليمان وكلا آتينا حكما وعلما وسخرنا مع داود الجبال يسبحنا والطير وكنا فاعلين وعلمناه صنعة لبوس لكم لتحصنكم من بأسكم فهل أنتم شاكرون ولسليمان الريح عاصفة تجري بأمره إلى الأرض التي باركنا فيها وكنا بكل شيء عالمين ومن الشياطين من يغوصون له ويعملون عملا دون ذلك وكنا لهم حافظين وأيوب إذ نادى ربه أني مسني الضر وأنت أرحم الراحمين فاستجبنا له فكشفنا ما به من ضر وآتيناه أهله ومثلهم معهم رحمة من عندنا وذكرى للعابدين وإسماعيل وإدريس وذا الكفل كل من الصابرين وأدخلناهم في رحمتنا إنهم من الصالحين وذا النون إذ ذهب مغاضبا فظن أن لن نقدر عليه فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين فاستجبنا له ونجيناه من الغم وكذلك ننجي المؤمنين صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Ahsan, Jazakallah khair, Brother Mohsin. Inshallah, we'll be concluding our programs tonight in this ayyam. Tonight will be our last night as we commemorate the Shahada, the Rihla of our dear Holy Prophet, Imam Riza alayhi salam and Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge, thank you all for coming. May Allah accept all your rewards and your commemorations for coming out in these nights, not just in this ayyam, but in the ayyam of Muharram and Safar. Inshallah, we can carry that spirit with us throughout the year, inshallah. With that, I'd like to invite up our dear guest scholar, Sheikh Ehsan Ahmadi. Please help me invite him up with a loud salawat by Muhammad wa al Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا اسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وأما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ذلك الذي يبشر الله عباده الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى ومن يقترف حسنة نزد له فيها حسنا إن الله غفور شكور. It is that of which Allah gives good tidings to His servants who believe and do righteous deeds. Say, I do not ask you for this message any payment, but only goodwill through my kinship. And whoever commits a good deed, we will increase for him good therein. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and appreciative. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحان الله يا فارج الهم ويا كاشف الغم فرج همنا ويسر أمرنا وارحم ضعفنا وقلة حيلتنا وارزقنا حيث لا نحتسب يا رب العالمين. First and most of all, جميعا سلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. First and most of all, my condolences on the Shahada and Rihla and demise of Nabi Rasulullah, Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wassalam, and our beloved Imam al-Rida. At the same time, congratulations on the arrival of the month of Rabiul Awwal. Inshallah, Allah accept all of your great deeds and a'mal, and inshallah, specifically your commemoration for Imam al-Hussein. And inshallah, we gain the benefit of following the footsteps of the ashab of Imam al-Hussein, and inshallah, the true ma'rifah of the Imam and his shafa'ah, by reciting a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And before we get started, let us remember all the marhumin and marhumat, all of the beloved ones, and inshallah we can include them within our majlis by reciting yet again another salawat followed by Surah Al-Fatiha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this bounty and ni'mah to be able to gather around under the beautiful banner with the name of the Ahlul Bayt, Sayyid al-Shahada alayhi salatu wassalam, and all of our Imams, including Imam al-Hasan, Imam al-Rida, and who better to talk about than Nabi Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. So for that, we're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and inshallah we can continue, and hopefully I'm hoping to finish or at least get to some point of what we started, and perhaps you already have guessed the topic of all of these nights, which will be the topic that will be mentioned at the end of the majalis. I myself do not like to usually talk about the topic at the first, but rather try to get to the topic through the lectures and inshallah through the discussions that we have. So we started with this beautiful hadith that takes place, the conversation, a dialogue between Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salatu wassalam and Harun al-Rashid, in which Imam refers to whatever Harun al-Rashid has established as the Dar al-Fasiqin, and talks about the elements and the reason why Imam is referring to all of that, what Harun is like bragging about and feels good about and feels as a sense of accomplishment, because literally it's the golden age of the Khulafa of the Abbasis at that time. And Imam, right from the front, or right from the the very first encounter, says everything you have established in reality is nothing. Is nothing but fisq. And fisq is something that goes in contrary to sadq. Sadq is that honesty that we know, but honesty in words. But we have sadq, which talks about the reality as well. So when Imam says the opposite of sadq, meaning everything you have established is nothing but a same mirage that you've been keep on promoting and expanding and spending your entire life on this realm that you call it your, let's say, the territory of governing. Then Harun continues the discussion as he's getting angry and angry by the answers and responses of the Imam. And it says, okay, then who's the true owner of this realm, of this territory, of this land, of this region, of this continent, of this Islamic nation that I have created? Imam says that the true owner of this are those who we refer to them as the Shias. The true owner of those are those who have the steadfast in their faith and Iman. And he gives them an example. He says, are those who actually are ready to stand up for whatever path that they are chosen, or whatever path they have been given, all the way to the end. They will never give up. They will never lose hope. They will never turn their back. Constantly talking about different qualities of the Shias. So Harun asked the second question. He says, so I'm not part of this Shias. Are you calling me a kafir? Basically right up front. So Imam takes him to a little bit of a sidetrack, and he says, no, I'm not calling you a kafir, but I'm calling you a person who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the bounty to, and you do not know how to spend the bounty on the right way or on the right path. So when he says this, again Harun becomes angry. He says, if that's the case, how come you don't take it back? Right? Imam says, we gave it when it was Amir, when it was ready. Everything was sound and secure. Everything was ready to have that transformation. But now, in what stage you're going to return it to us? In the stage that we call it Darul Fasiqin. Nothing is left from it, right? We want the same thing that we gave you, right? We want it at that stage of Amr, when it becomes Ma'amur, as Imam says. Meaning we have to wait. We have to wait for all of the stuff that has happened to go back gradually to the first stage that was taken from us. That will be the stage of Ma'amur, when we'll be ready to establish that Darul Mu'minin, that Darul Muwahhidin, that territory of faith, the territory of monotheism, the territory of Iman, and believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indication that this whole background story, or this foundation of how we built our spiritual, let's say, perfection, our spiritual life, is very important. To always go back and review on which path are we actually spending our time, on which path are we spending our days, on which path are we spending literally every second that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. So we started talking about that one of the greatest severe tests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to the followers is the very same usurpation of the power of the Khilafat. And Imam talks about it, keeps on saying that, the whole, you guys being able to take away what was already flourished and ready to be harvest, this whole time that is in your hand, for you will be like a niqmah, because now you have to be responsible for everything that you have taken away. For those who are living under your sovereignty, under your hukuma, under your government, will be a test if they are true believers, right? If they are true believers, they're constantly being tested by someone who has the power and is not doing anything except for fisq. Fisq is that mirage, right? Fisq is that, from the mirage comes injustice, from mirage comes lying, from mirage comes corruptions, from mirage comes stealing. All of this stuff comes from the topic of fisq. So whoever is living underneath your sovereignty and government at this time, all of them will be tested by what you have taken away. It's like a hand in hand. So until when? Until finally this whole thing goes back to that stage of being ready to accept that change or transformation, to accept that sadaqah to come back again, to accept that true sense of reality to come back and take over the power. So now we understand in which era we're living in. Not only in terms of a Georgian calendar, okay, I'm living 1400 years past that. No, what Imam is referring is something that we can practice and reflect on our own very personal life, social life, family life, even community life. In what sense? In understanding that at least what are we dealing with? What will be the criterion to understand that if I do a specific act, is that act really is coming from a reality that has benefits for my soul, for my nafs, for my, the hereafter? Or no, is that something that I just do out of habit? Is that something that I just do out of my cultural background? Is that something that I'm just used to it, right? We have to go back and we have to become very thorough. Why? Remember, what is Imam saying? He talks to Harun and says, you have taken away what is not yours and you're using as testing purposes. Meaning everything has become mixed up so much, has been like gathered so much, the haqq and batil, that becomes very difficult to tell which part of it is haqq, which part of it is batil. And this is from the time of Imam Musa al-Kazim. Now take that concept and make it more complex, more complicated, more advanced, more intertwined every year that passes by until you reach our time. What happens? When you look at the world, literally becomes impossible to be able to distinguish the haqq from batil. It is so intertwined and it has become so complicated. It has become so advanced in terms of the details that have been constantly leading to another stuff, that a lot of times, even believers, even scholars sometimes, they will be like, okay, this is very confusing. And that's one of the signs of the Akhir al-Zaman. And you probably have heard that mu'mineen and mu'minat, they take the hands of their family and children, they go from one mountain to another mountain, referring to the location. Constantly changing location. Why? Because they find they're looking for that proper place to be able to practice the true version of their religion. But they cannot find it. They're constantly searching for it and searching for it. Why? Because again, everything has been mixed up so much, it's not as easy to find the source. And that's part of, again, prerequisites of getting to that stage of ma'amur again. Why? Once we reach the lowest of the low, that's when we realize we need help. That's when we realize we really are in need of help. A lot of times we think that we need help. When we think, we just do a simple dua. But when we truly feel the need for the need, that's when usually the du'as get answered. When we become mustar, the ayah that we always recite, أَمَّا الْيُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَا. When is that for? When a person finds himself or herself completely cornered. Absolutely no other way out. Right? Sitting on an airplane, the pilot keeps on telling you that, with all due respect, thank you for choosing our airline, but we have some technical difficulties, the engine is going out, إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ, and you're on your own basically. And no Wi-Fi on the phone. So what happened? The plane is going down. What does everybody do? Right? You cannot call anybody. You cannot send SOS. You cannot do your location share. You cannot. There's no Wi-Fi. The cell phones are not working. Would you be talking to one another and say, hey, how's the business going? What's the stock? What's the new trend? Everybody goes back to the basics, to the very same needs, right? When we hit the lowest of the low, that's when we start acknowledging the true needs that we have. And that's when we start to asking in a true sense for help. Before that is a claim. Before that, it's a claim. Just as Amir al-Mu'mineen, he beautifully mentions this in Nahj al-Balagha when he's talking about the characteristics and quality of Nabi Rasulullah. First, he starts with the very interesting statement. He says, a lot of people, they claim that they have the hope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have hope towards Allah. And they fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The hope and raja, right? The hope and khawf and the khawf and raja together. They claim that they have hope towards Allah and they claim that they have fear of Allah in their hearts. Then immediately Imam says, but they're lying. This is in a member, in a public member. But they're lying. And he kind of points out to why. He says every claim we make, it has a sign. If I say I have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the signs are not showing in my actions, in my behavior, in my ethics, in my manners, that means it's just mere words. If I say I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet again it has no reflection in my actions or deeds, in my manners, in my akhlaq, in my behavior. Again, I'm just making a claim, a baseless claim, right? So Imam constantly gives different example for this argument that he makes. What is he trying to reach? He's trying to reach that the humanity has to find itself in a stage that truly understand the need of having a role model, right? So it starts with this true claim. He says not only if we become true with ourselves, is that we start to realize what are our true needs. If that doesn't happen, everything else is again being built based on a mirage after mirage after mirage after mirage. Now some of them good, some of them bad, but the foundation is not ready. So it's just, again, building and building upon something that has no foundation. So there'll be the slightest, flicker, with the slightest, wind, with the slightest, criticism, with the slightest doubt or shubha, everything collapses. And that's what we see every day. So many people who were known to be believers, right? They give up their belief. From other side, so many people who were not believers, they become believers, which is good, but maintaining it. The second step, maintaining it, right? Maintaining it when it becomes more difficult. Maintaining it when it becomes more severe. Maintaining it when we have to give up the stuff that we like, not the stuff that we don't care for. They always make this comment about all of the ahkam. They say when the ahkam was getting revealed to Nabi Rasulullah, so ahkam would come gradually, right? Not all at once. It was not like the Tawzihul Masal was given to Nabi Rasulullah, right? The ayahs were revealed one by one. So for example, the first ayah was, if hypothetically for jihad, fi sabilillah, to go to war on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who were extrovert, right? Those who were constantly seeking opportunities, they would become happy. Like, okay, we go to war for the sake of Allah, we get the sawab, and we get a lot of, the booties of war. We get a lot of stuff. The man who becomes a shaheed of a horse, you probably have heard of this story, right? He's fighting alongside of Nabi Rasulullah. He attacks, he gets killed. The other comments is, mashallah, he has become shaheed, how great, and he's in the heaven. What does Nabi Rasulullah say? He's not shaheed. Yes, he is shaheed, but not the shaheed in the path of Allah. He's the shaheed of horse. Why shaheed of horse? It's like right before he charged against the enemy, right before, he saw that horse, and he was thinking, how great of a horse, how great of a ride it is. If I kill him, more likely I can keep that horse for me, keep that ride for myself. Right before you strike. And he got killed. But what will we be resurrected with? The horse, right? He's fighting alongside, next to the feet of Nabi Rasulullah. But where does Nabi Rasulullah get resurrected? Where does he get resurrected, right? So this physical closeness is not always the determining factor. Goes back to the very first step, that okay, the steps that I'm taking, where are these steps are based from, right? And how am I able to maintain the path that I have chosen? The very same concept happens during the time of occultation. Because what changes in occultation time? Our connection, the direct connection that the people had before us to the imams, obviously, is cut off. But does that mean the end of the story? Or no, that means just a great opening. In a sense, if you look at the history of the imams, the way the occultation happens, it happens gradually. It's not all of a sudden the topic of occultation happens. No, right after the time of you can say Imam Musa al-Kazim, little by little. Imam Musa al-Kazim, most of his time is in jail, right? Then you come to Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, he gets summoned towards totally a different region, to the part that they call him gharib, meaning a lot of people around him were actually the new ones, because Ma'mun, he was under the eastern side of the Islamic territory. The capital was Baghdad, the center, not all the way in Marv. What was Ma'mun doing in Marv? It's a historical discussion, but basically he was there to protect the borders of Islam, and Harun takes all of his guards and army and his elite member of the guard. As he's about to go and join Ma'mun to attack the further eastern side of his territory, Harun passes away in the midway. So technically Ma'mun is left there with the elite members of his guard. That's how he actually gains the power over his brother Amin. Now the very first thing he does, he summons Imam Rida. Now the Imam comes there, how many years? Less than 3 years. He makes Imam Shaheed, right? So Imam is gone. The next Imam, Imam al-Jawad, they're one of the biggest, test for the Shi'ayan. Why? Due to his age. And how many years was he the Imam? Right? About 25, 24, right? When he becomes Shaheed again. The next Imam, Imam al-Hadi, again at a young age. But now the distance is becoming more and more. Why? Because they place Imam al-Hadi and Imam al-Hasan al-Askari in the city of Samarra. Where? In Askarain, which, it's basically an army base. So now imagine how hard would it be to actually see the Imam or ask your answers. So it's like as if they're getting distant and distant and distant from the believers. At the same time, what becomes more active? That network of wukala, the representative of the imams, the attorneys of the imam. That becomes more, activated about. Like imams are pushing for an indirect access. So it started from that time, gradually getting that distance. Why? For the time of occultation. But occultation doesn't mean that like literally we have no access to the imam. Yes, physically, yes. But in reality, as they say, he's everywhere that you can lay your finger towards. Meaning like the good question, sometimes these little kids, they always ask us, oh Sheikh Maulana, where is Imam Zaman live? Where does he live? Where is his house? Where is does he live in a country? Does he live in a city? Does he live, right? What's the answer to that one? Can you tell me somewhere that Imam of time is not there? Right? He's the Imam of time. The sovereign of the time and place. And that's what, back in the days, like apparently one of the guys was claiming to know the answer for every question, and he was making all of these claims. And he had some, what they call it, connection with other species, and from them he could actually answer every question that you had. He could read your mind, he could see like what you're hiding in your hand, whatever question you had, he would give you the answer. Something to like ChatGPT that we have today, but in the form of a human. Back in the days. So it was a big news, like, wow, how does he know all these answers and stuff? So a couple of scholars, they go to test him, they ask him a couple of questions, they hide a couple of things. Like, no, everything you ask him, he knows the answer. The last one goes to him and he says, okay, tell me what I think and tell me what's the answer. And he keeps on thinking. There's no answer. As if there's he has reached that he needs an update, right? He keeps on thinking, no answer. The other ones, they ask him, what did you ask him? He says, no, give him some time, maybe he can find the answer. He keeps on thinking and he becomes red and he becomes like he's trying to, right? Or he cannot get the answer. Finally, the scholar asks him, what happened? You didn't know the answer for my question? He says, no, I know your question and I can tell you where. The problem is, no matter where in the world I tell you, I can see him in all other parts of the world. No matter where in the world I want to tell you, point A, point B, point C, I'll see him in all other parts of the world. The other two, they ask him, what did you ask? So I ask him, where is the location of Hazrat Sahab al-Asr wal-Zaman? Everywhere. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So everywhere we look, he is there. It's just a matter of us acknowledging it. That acknowledgement, again, comes from that true sense of need that we feel inside of our heart truly. That, okay, I need an imam. Right? A lot of times we have discussion even about how we obtain a religion, which is a very basic step. If I have problems with the very same basics of my religion, how would I be claiming that I have a need towards an imam al-ma'soom? Right? Because we have been distant so much. We don't sense the need. We don't sense the connection. We don't sense that, hey, whatever is happening to us, number one, Imam is full aware of it. It's not that he's is kept in the shadow and he doesn't know. No, literally every single thing that we go through, that we do, that we think, every single little thing, right? Imam of time has the knowledge of. And everything that's been given to us, even the provisioning, the ruzi, the rizq, all of it is present. It's not like he's, again, put in the shade and he doesn't know what's going on with everybody. He's gone on vacation and somewhere in an island that nobody can access to physically or in a different planet. No, it's none of those stuff. As they say, the nafs of the imam, right? The soul of the imam is what every other thing comes through that nafs, by the nafs, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything that we gain, any sort of perfection that we gain, any sort of knowledge, any sort of power, any sort of rizq provisioning, anything that we gain comes through the nafs of the imam first. So he knows about all of us. He knows every detail about all of us. And he's constantly praying for us. What is he praying for? To get us better job? To get us better education, higher education? To get us make more income? No, that's what we want. And the very same wants that we have, as I mentioned last night, it makes the distance even further. Why? Imam is trying to lead us towards where? What does Imam want for us? He wants a true sense of perfection. What do we want? We want that mirage, that ghurur. Remember? Don't be the tajir of ghurur. We're constantly aiming for that ghurur, and Imam is constantly pushing us towards the other way. And that's what Amir al-Mu'mineen talks in his sermon. He says, people claim to have hope on Allah, people claim to have fear on Allah, but I don't see any signs in their actions. Then Imam starts to talk about having or obtaining uswa, the role model, right? لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Imam is talking about Nabi Rasulullah after his rihla, and he's trying to, explain what are the qualities of Nabi Rasulullah. He uses the word uswa. What does uswa mean? Uswa means that perfect example, which everything else gets determined by comparison to that perfect example. That's the definition of uswa. Then Imam starts talking about the previous prophets. He said, how is it that the believers lived like this and they constantly complain? Indication that even at that time, people were complaining about the same stuff. Oh, my salary is too short. I don't have insurance. I don't have a house. I don't have... Very same stuff was happening at that time too, right? And what says we constantly complaining for this stuff. We constantly working towards this stuff. When we look at our role models, we have to be a little bit smart about this. So if you don't want to go after Nabi Rasulullah, fine. Go after, for example, Nabi Musa, right? Go after Nabi Musa and see what did he do for 40 days that he went to the miqat, right? He did not eat nor drink. To the point that when he comes back, they say he becomes so skinny that no matter what type of food that he would eat, especially the vegetables, because he could not eat meat, you could literally see the food going down from his the parts of the body to the has become that skinny. Or now go after Nabi Isa. He's the prophet, right? He's the ulul azm, as they say. Did he have a house? No. Where did he used to actually warm himself? Under the sun. His ride was his 2 feet. His servants was his 2 hands. No wife, no kids, no house, no mansions, no palaces, nothing. That's the pathway of Nabi Isa. No, sometimes we talk about David and Solomon and we want that power too, right? The majestic power. So you want to go after Nabi Dawood or David? Go for it. Look at the history. Yes, he had all of this power. He had the kingdom, but at the same time, where was his provisioning coming from? He would make baskets using his own hand, and he would sell those baskets to earn an income, right? As if it's an eye-opening. And I'm saying, look at all of the prophets. These are the greatest of the prophets, and look at their lifestyle. What were they gaining? Then he reaches Nabi Rasulullah. He says, but it's upon you to follow the best of the best, the most pure of the pure, the most complete of the complete, the most comprehensive of the comprehensive. And then he talks about Nabi Rasulullah. He said, take a look at his life. He lived the whole full life of the 63 years, but not a single day he was able to sleep on a full stomach. So how is that possible to be the seal of prophethood, the last of the prophet, the most completed and perfect prophet, the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yet again, he doesn't have those convenience of life as an awakening point. That the path is a little bit different that we always tend to fall down for, right? The path is actually 180-degree different. We constantly want that ease and comfort and convenience of life, but our imams are trying to tell us that you have to give up that convenience for the true sense of convenience. If you want that true sense of being everlasting, right? This topic of infinity, the more we think about it, the scarier it becomes, but the more hope it actually provides. That we're not created to only live a very short temporary of 70, 80, I don't know how many years of a lifespan that's going to happen in these years and all of the stuff that happens. No, that's just for the temporary time, right? We're built for an infinite amount of life, infinite amount of existence. But in what shape? In what form, in what choices, what capabilities, that's up to me and you. So that's what imams are pushing constantly. To, hey, take one step, even small step. Doesn't matter, like a lot of times we may say, oh, that's too much, I cannot do it. The maximum I can do will be my wajibat, which is good if you maintain the wajibat, alhamdulillah. That's a bare minimum. But they always say, don't never say it's too much for me. The example of a honeybee and the fire of Nabi Ibrahim. Inshallah, you have heard of that story too. when they set up the fire, how huge is the fire? For a couple of days, they're gathering on woods and woods and woods, so it becomes a pile of woods, right? Now they set it on fire. Can anybody get close to that fire? That's why they have to throw Nabi Ibrahim, right? Now, among all of this, when the fire is glazing to the sky, this honeybee comes, and how much honeybee can take, water? I don't know how much, in terms of grams and milligrams. He's taking that amount of water, and he's flying towards the fire. And what does he do? He throws the water like a spit, towards a huge fire. What happens to the water? Way before reaching close by, it gets all steamed out. Nothing gets to the fire. And I ask him, what are you doing? Taking 1 milligram of water and taking to the fire and dropping it at the water. He says, I may not be able to put out the entire fire, but I'm doing what I'm capable of. This is how much I can carry. This is how much I will take. And this is how much I will do in order to show my support for the Prophet of Allah, Nabi Ibrahim. A honeybee. In some riwayah, it says a frog. He was keeping the water in his mouth, he would jump to the fire. Before the fire, he would spit the water out. In another riwayah, it says a honeybee. So me and you, same thing. We may not be at the highest level of akhlaq or irfan or philosophy or all of the levels of faith, but we have to try from somewhere, start from somewhere, right? We cannot always say, okay, this is too much for me, this is way too high. No, it starts with the little things. As I say, that islah fi ummati is constantly happening on every day. So me and you, we have to learn from the very same mission of Imam al-Hussein. And that's why we constantly recite in Ziyarat of Ashura and constantly ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say, Allahumma arzuqni shafa'at al-Hussein yawm al-wurud wa thabbit li qadama sidqan indaka ma'al Hussein. Thabbit li qadama sidqan. Make this constant for me. Why? These steps, the steps out of sidq. With who? With Abu Abdullah. Right? Make it a constant, or make it a constant process. Not breakaways of the process. Not only 10 days of Muharram, not only the day of Arba'in, not only the end of Safar, not only the month of Ramadan and Layali of Qadr, basically, not the entire month of Ramadan. No. It's all a process. The whole life has to be part of this. Once we exchange the entire life in this process, that's when we finally have made a move from that Darul Fasiqeen towards Darul Iman. Because now we're actually building something. Before that, it's on and off. For 1 second we're good, 1 second we're bad. 1 hour we're good, 1 hour we're bad, right? Constantly going back and forth. The more we go back and forth, the more we maintain the very same position that we have. So in reality, we're losing. Why? Because the time is ticking. I'm losing the opportunities. I'm losing those chances. So it goes back to starting from somewhere, setting the ground, even if it's the smallest action that we can take. And obviously it will be hard. This tolerance of the vilayat of the Ahlul Bayt is not an easy task. As Amir al-Mu'mineen mentions, as Nabi Rasulullah talks about, as all of their imams mentioned. Why? Because in reality, we're trying to place our hawa, our desires, according to the desires of the Ahlul Bayt. This is very difficult to maintain it. What's the starting point? From wherever that we can start, as easy as it gets, but maintaining it. Don't aim too high and then just do it for a couple of days and then that's it, right? Going back to the wajibat, for example. The very same wajibat that we do, I can make the wajib a little bit more quality, focus on the quality of the wajib as I'm doing it. The morning prayer, for example, the Zohar and Asr prayer, right? Maghrib and Isha that we constantly pray every day. What can I do before and after? And not just a checklist. That's another point. Not just set up a different order and say, okay, this is what I've done, check, 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 check. I'll make it like a routine, actions per day. That's not it. Why? Because every deed that we do in the religion is supposed to give us something in return. What does it give us? It's not the rewards of hereafter. It literally impacts us in our own life. What is it supposed to give us? They refer to it as the spirit of taqwa. The more the sincere of a deed we have, the more of this spirit of taqwa, the motion, if you want to say, of taqwa we gain. The more sincere of the act becomes, right? So the more salat we pray, if the salat is actually good quality, the more of the taqwa we gain. So the more we get away from what? Fahsha'i wal munkar. So the one who's praying at the same time is thinking, not only thinking, but doing actions upon fahsha'i wal munkar, has to go back to the very same prayer, right? Or the basis that he or she has chosen to pray. A lot of times we pray in any given places. No, we look at the Ravaya, it has so many details about where to pray, like in what condition. Try to avoid, for example, praying in front of an open door or where people constantly walk by. Try to make sure you find a humble, the modest corner in your room. Not a lot of decoration, not a lot of pictures, not a lot of statues, nothing around you, not a lot of distraction. Now, all of that aside, we always have our cell phone in our pocket, which constantly beeping and beeping and beeping and beeping with, mashallah, right? So again, remember, everything is intertwined a lot more. Now with all of this, I'm trying to focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It becomes very difficult. I don't focus, I don't get what I'm supposed to get from the prayer. So I either put all of this aside, or I have to increase the level of that connection. I have to use a booster for my prayer. What are the boosters? The nawafil, right? Being daim al-wudu, constantly being at the stage of wudu. Right? From the early morning that we wake up, actually interesting, one of the mustahabat, the minute we wake up is what? Is not to run towards the bathroom, no. It's actually to do a sajda without your wudu and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? To have been returning your soul to the body for another day to start and work and inshallah walk the path towards Him. The very same act that is mustahab to do on daily basis, right? So we start our day with that, and what are the last things that we do? With the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The azkar of going to sleep before night, right? The tasbihat of Hazrat Zahra, the la ilaha illallah, the salawat, the surah of Tawheed, the ayatul kursi, and tasbihat. Why? The whole day is supposed to be in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole moment that we have, but not again in terms of a checklist. Living every second, living every minute, living every moment, inshallah. And that's what Amir al-Mu'mineen talks about in the very same sermon. Take a look at the life of Nabi Rasulullah. Despite of having all of this within his power, he decides to take the bare minimum, right? Very bare minimum, to the point that a lot of times he would go literally days in hunger. He would not find food to even eat. It's Nabi Rasul. It's Nabi Rasulullah. Now they're not asking us to do the same thing, but they're asking us to help them on the path. Why so? Because again, the part of this fellowship that we have with the Ahlul Bayt and Nabi Rasulullah and the Quran, the part of fellowship is when this fellowship becomes sincere, right? Automatically we start observing the perfections of the one that we are following. Automatically. Like the ahadith that talks about when you listen to someone as if you're worshiping them, right? What is that coming from? Because when you focus on something, when that they call it ma'iyyat, when that fellowship, that accompanyship happens, when it's true, the ones who's at the lower stage, it starts gaining from the perfections of the one that is the higher stage. So that's why we talk about a fellowship of the Ahlul Bayt. This ma'iyyat, right? Constantly being with the Ahlul Bayt, constantly being with the Quran, constantly being with the pious people, right? It just brings us a lot of stuff that without even working for. The perfect example, Ashab of Hazrat Sayyid al-Shahada, right? They were all different levels in terms of a faith. They were all in different levels. In terms of piety, they were different levels. In terms of their resume in Islam, they were in different levels. Some of them were, mashallah, top of the line, right? But some of them, very new to Islam. Perhaps they did not even know the ahkam. Couple of days that they have embraced Islam. But what did they gain from a couple of days being with Imam al-Hussein? For 1400 years plus, whoever claims to be a Shia goes to the ziyarat and goes to their grave and says, Bi-abi antum bi-ummi. May I sacrifice my mother and father for you. See? A couple of days gets that perfection. That's the beauty of the Ahlul Bayt. Especially Sayyid al-Shahada alayhi salatu wassalam. There is this beautiful mukashafa, this story that's been narrated by Allama Ja'fari. Those who probably know him, he's one of the greatest thinkers of the contemporary thinkers. He said, I was in Najaf. I was at the Haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and I like ran into Marhum Ansari. So we were talking, and right, like when he saw me, we were sitting under where they call it Balasar, like where, when as you enter the shrine, there is this the part where the feet is and the part where the head is. We were sitting there, and we were reciting du'as. We saw each other. He saw me, and he told me that I see the light of Ayatollah Talaqani in your forehead. I turned around and said, yes, because I'm a student of Ayatollah Talaqani. I've been studying with him for such a long time, and we started talking about the Ayatollah Talaqani for like a couple of minutes. Then all of a sudden he started contemplating on his own, and I started doing my own namaz. I was doing the salat of Ja'far al-Tayyar. And next to the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen, I found the perfect spot. So I was putting all of my efforts in doing the salat, and I prolonged it as much as I could. For the entire time, Marhum Ansari, his head was down and he was contemplating. Once I finished my salat, he turned around and he told me that while you were praying, they showed me the realm of Qiyamah. They took me to the realm of Qiyamah. I saw the mahshar, and I saw people being accountable for their deeds. I saw this one brother that they were taking him, dragging him towards the fire of hell. And the way he would scream, nobody would help him, because everybody's busy with their own things. Everybody has to again, pay up for whatever they have taken, right? Being responsible. They're taking him towards the fire of hell, and he's constantly asking for mercy and begs and from help from him. Nobody's paying attention to him. So when I looked at him, as if I was seeing all of the deeds that he has done in his life, all was dark, nothing good. Dark after darkness, after darkness, after darkness. I kept on looking at these deeds. I finally found one spot of light. So I focused on that spot of light. What deed is that has this light within all of this darkness of his report card? I looked, I saw that he had this tiniest amount of affection towards Imam al-Hussein. In what form? It's not that he would go to the majalis. It's not that he would participate in the morning. It's not that he would be the active. No. He just had this liking towards the flags of Sayyid al-Shuhada that would be hang outside of the majlis of Abu Abdullah. He would just walk by the majalis. As he would walk by the majalis, he would see the flags hanging with the name of Imam al-Hussein. He would just rub his hand out of the love that he had, right? And he would kiss the flag and he would continue. He would not even go to the majlis, right? That was a spot of light in all of the darkness that he had. They were taking him to the fire of hell when Sayyid al-Shuhada entered the realm of the mahshar in the Qiyamah. The minute Imam al-Hussein entered, he shouted out, Ya Abu Abdullah, help me. Imam al-Hussein points to the angels who were taking him and told them, bring him back. He has called upon my name. Marhum Ansari says, they brought him back. Imam says, give me his report card, give me his deeds. He opened the report card, and I was looking at what Imam al-Hussein was doing. He took out his pen out of light. He started writing at the end of the report card when they have the grades, and it says fail. He crossed that one, and he says, Assalamu alayka ya mubaddil as-sayyi'at bil hasanat. Oh, the one who converts the sins to hasanat. From where? From touching or doing tabarruk on the flag that is hanged outside of a majlis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. That one light. They changed the course. They changed the path. They took him towards heaven. That light became more and more and more. They removed all of those. They took him to heaven. So this ma'iyah, this fellowship, right, that we have, this connection that we have with Ahlul Bayt, don't take it for lightly. It's the best of the na'amat that we have, that we don't even work for it. All we do, we just make a simple connection, and all we do, we gain, is barakat. A lot of times we don't recognize it. It reveals itself, inshallah, when the veils gets removed. So on this last night of the month of Safar, inshallah, we can take our hearts, we can do a tawassul on the Ahlul Bayt, on the Nabi Rasulullah, on Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, on Imam al-Rida. Imam al-Rida mentioned a couple of stories last night. One of them actually breaks my own heart. One of his title is Zamena Ahu, which means the protector of a deer. What's the story? There is one common story among the people. I'm not going to tell you guys that one. There is one that's narrated in Uyun al-Akhbar al-Raza by Sheikh al-Saduq. He says there was this hunter. He had this, the hunting dog that he was chasing, his baits. One day he spots this deer. He keeps on sending the hunting dog after the deer. So he starts following it and chasing it. The deer keeps on running until when? Until he reaches this a boundary of a wall. The minute the deer would get close to the wall, this dog would not approach him, would sit there. The minute the deer would get away from that wall, the dog would start chasing it. Again, the deer would go back to the wall. This happened 2, 3, 4 times. I got frustrated, the hunter keeps on saying. So I started going after the deer myself. The deer found a breakaway, a hole inside of the wall, went inside. So there was no way for me to get inside from there. I had to go from the door. I turned around. I went from the door inside. I kept on asking, did you guys see a deer walking inside from the hole in the wall? Just, we haven't spotted any deer. No matter who I asked. So I went back to that crack of the wall. I could see the footstep of a deer walking, but no sign of it. From that moment, I realized there's something about this place that makes my hunting dog wait back as a sign of respect and protects this deer. From that moment, I decided to change my behavior, because not only I would go for hunting, but I used to set up barriers for those who would go for the ziyarat of Imam al-Raza, and I would loot their caravans, because I did not believe in the Imam. I was like, what are you guys doing for ziyarat? You give me the stuff and then you go for ziyarat. From that moment, I changed. Very same story happened recently, not about I would say about 10, 15 maybe years ago. There's this camel who is famous in Mashhad. If you go and ask those servants, especially the elder servants, they will tell you. It has a very interesting story. Sometimes they bring the animals to get slaughtered and they make all the foods that, mashallah, we go and eat as tabarruk, right? So one time they brought this group of camels. They say one of them, he breaks loose. And he starts to running from one street to another street. And there's a distance from the slaughterhouse to the shrine of Imam al-Raza, right? The camel breaks loose. He starts running from one street to one street. He starts coming to what they call it the street of Imam al-Raza, where you see the 2 minarets on the side of the golden dome. He goes directly towards what they call it Panjare Fulat. That's where people actually do a lot of prayers these days. He goes there. Before he reaches there, he kneels down. He kneels down in front of the Panjare Fulat. He lowers his neck. He lowers his head, as if he's doing dua and tawassul to Imam Ali ibn Musa, a camel. When the servants, they see this, they buy him out free and they set him free. They actually send him to the farms, which again, it's in the name of Imam Raza, just to live. And he was alive until I think a couple of years ago, when he finally passed away of a natural death. Even animals understand the beauty of getting this connection towards the Ahlul Bayt. So how bountiful we are on these nights, and how sad it is that all of it is coming to an end with tonight. So inshallah we can maintain this one, not only for the 2 months, but throughout our year, inshallah. So the last night of the majlis, usually they talk about the Sahib Azam. And inshallah we can take our heart to the city of Medina, if we can dim the lights a little bit, and we can send our salam upon the last remaining of Nabi Rasulullah, Hazrat Fatima al-Zahra, salamullah alayha. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله. When we look at the ahadith, this word bad'atun minni is mentioned for 3 persons. First one, Sayyidah Fatima salamullah alayha, where Nabi Rasulullah says, Fatimatu bad'atun minni. The second one is for Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he says, Ala wa inna aliyan bad'atun minni faman harabahu faqad harabani. The third one is for our own beloved Imam al-Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, in which Imam al-Baghir narrates from Nabi Rasulullah that he says, Satadfunu bad'atun minni bi-arad Khurasan. Ma zaraha makrubun illa nafasallah kurbatah wala mudnibun illa ghafarallah dhunubah. Soon there will be buried this part of me in the land of Khurasan, that whoever goes for his ziyarat, even if he has this painful heart, Allah would remove the pains and sorrow from his heart. And if he's a sinful person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him as of his sin. This baz'atun minni is mentioned only for 3. Now when we go for the shahadat of Imam al-Rida, the poison that they gave him, the amount of severeness of that poison, after the death and shahada of Imam al-Rida, still there is this common cultural thing among the people of Mashhad, that they come out to the shrine of Imam al-Rida on the day of the shahada, on the night of shahada, and everybody brings a flower with them. They ask, what's the story? They say, when Imam al-Rida became shaheed back in the days, as these women of the close by villages there, as they were spotting, they noticed that there is this burial taking place, but in this burial are only a few people participating. So they ask, how come we have a burial of a person and only a few people? Imagine, Imam al-Rida, no family, no siblings, no sons, no daughters, nobody is there with him when he becomes shaheed. So what do? They ask their husband, they say, Imam al-Rida, he's the crown prince, he's the imam, we cannot have the burial of an imam in this stage. Give us permission to go and participate in his burial. The husbands give the permission, they go, they all bring the flowers, and they start showering the tabut and the coffin of Imam al-Rida with the flowers that they had in their hand, participating in the burial ceremony of Imam al-Rida. For that, even today, on this night, they take flower to the shrine of Imam al-Rida. But as if that's the only burial that we know, that, oh, Imam al-Rida, you were the gharib in the land of Tus. But at least you got the ladies and sisters who came out and they brought flowers and they participated in your burial. Oh, Imam al-Rida, you yourself keep on telling us, and you told Yabna Shabib, فَإِذَا كُنْتَ بَاقِيًا لِلشَّيْءٍ فَابْكِ لِلْحُسَيْنِ. Whenever you cry for anything, start to cry for Aba Abdullah. Why? فَإِنَّهُ ذُبِحَ كَمَا ذُبِحَ الْكَبْشِ. Because he was killed just like the way that you slaughter a sheep. Ya Allah, I'll ask you a couple of questions. I would not go to the maqtal. As they say, Imam al-Sajjad, he would walk by the markets of the qassaban, by the markets of the butchers. Every time he would see someone about to slaughter a sheep, he would ask one simple question: have you give him some water before you cut off his head? The butcher man would turn around and says, Yabna Rasulallah, what are you asking? Obviously we'll give it water. This is our rasm, this is our tradition, this is part of our religion. The minute he would say part of our religion, he would say, how come you give water to the sheep? While my father was killed in the land of Karbala, in the middle of the Godal of Ghatslaga, while being thirsty, while being away from the Farat river, and Imam would mourn for Imam al-Hussein. But wait, let me ask a couple more questions. We always ask the very same butcherman, when you want to slaughter the sheep, what do you do? What are the etiquettes of slaughtering a sheep? One of them is that he has to face the Qibla. Do you make the sheep like face the Qibla? He says, yes, I will make him face the Qibla. We ask the second question, do you tie up the hands and the legs of the sheep to make him like, actually do a little bit of moving when you're like slaughtering him to ease the pain for him? He says, yes, we tie up the hands and the legs. Then we'll ask them the third question, what are some of the mustahabbat about the knife that you took? Do you have to make sure that it's sharp, that it cuts through with no pain? He says, yes. Why are you asking this question? We'll ask him the last question. It's like, when we slaughter a sheep, do you slaughter a sheep in front of other sheep? Or do you take it to a corner? What do they say? They say, no, we never kill a sheep in front of others. That's not what we do. But the Aziz of Fatima, in the middle of Godal of Qatlaga, the helhela of the enemy, وَالشَّمْرُ جَالِسٌ عَلَى صَدْرِ, Sayyida Zainab on the Godal of Qatlaga. What does Shamr do? Takes his sword out, takes his dagger out, but he doesn't go for the head of Abu Abdullah. I'm sorry to go to a little details. He takes out the side. What does he do? He goes for the body of Imam al-Hussein. He sees that Sayyida Zainab is looking. What does he do? 12 strikes on the body of Abu Abdullah, who's already has more than 80 or plus of the wounds on his body, laying there, not been able to even move. But we're in front of all of these women and children. It's not that's the only one. For the entire journey from the land of Karbala to Kufa, from Kufa to Sham, what have they been constantly displaying in front of all of these women and children? Wasn't the heads of the shuhada that was constantly being paraded in between all of these women and children looking up to the heads of shuhada? As if that was not enough, what happens at the Rikaj and the Kharabat of Sham? There is one more burial over there. Who participate in the burial? The burial that takes place between a 3-year-old of Abu Abdullah, Sayyida Ruqayya, and Imam al-Hussein by himself. One moment, one connection, Sayyida Ruqayya is done for good. He keeps on asking, oh Baba Jan, what has happened to your face? How come I do not see the Hussein that I know? Who has done this to your face? Who has done this to your hair? Who has done this to your neck? Oh Baba Jan. We have to say goodbye to all of that. But perhaps the last farewell, it's when Sayyida Zainab is giving a chance to say her last farewell to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. They say she throws herself from the camel down one more time. She starts going towards the Godal of Qatlaga. She puts aside all of the broken swords, all of the broken spears, all of the debris from the war. And she keeps on looking and searching and looking and searching. What is she looking for in the middle of all of those piles of the body? Finally, she reaches down, she lifts up this body up. But what a body it is. It is even hard to tell what body or who does it belong to. Sayyida Sukaina comes down. She approaches her aunt. She looks at the body that Sayyida Zainab is holding. Look at for the Masa'ib, the daughter of Imam al-Hussein. Ask Sayyida Zainab, oh auntie, whose body are you holding? Is that the body of my father? Is that the body of Aziz of Fatima? Is that the body of the last of the Panjtan? Is that the body of the last grandson of Nabi Rasulullah? What a stage of the body is. Sayyida Zainab says, Allahumma taqabbal hadha al-qurban. Oh Allah, accept this little qurban from us. Accept this little sacrifice. They say they heard this sound from a little far distance. When they look, they saw this lady who had this bent arc, and she was looking at the Godal of Qatlaga, and she was saying, Bunayya, Bunayya, Bunayya. Oh my son, my son, my son. Oh, as if like Sayyida Zahra is looking at the tragedy of Ashura. But what does she remember? She remembers that she got stuck between the wall and the door. The door was pushed towards her. First she shouts out, but what does she shout? She does not say, Ya Allah. She says, Oh Fidda Khuzini. Oh Fidda, come to my assistance. What has happened? Inna lillah وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مغلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك وسنة نبيك واجعلنا من عوان صاحب العصر والزمان وارحم أمواتنا واشف أمراضنا واجعل عاقبة الأمور خيرا. Oh Allah, will ask you on the right of Imam al-Hussein, on the right of Imam al-Hassan, on the right of Imam al-Rida and Nabi Rasulullah, and the rest of the Ahlul Bayt, on the right of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. Oh Allah, will ask you to hasten the appearance of Imam of time and give us the tawfiq of a true ma'rifah towards the Imam and inshallah the true companionship of the Imam. Oh Allah, will ask you to forgive all of us of our previous and past actions and extend your mercy and maghfirah upon all the marhumin and marhumat. Oh Allah, will ask you to provide shifa and cure for all of those mu'mineen and mu'minat who are suffering in their life with different sicknesses and diseases. Oh Allah, will ask you to answer the hawaij of mu'mineen and mu'minat and to continue guiding us on Sirat al-Mustaqim and providing the hubb of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad to all of us and to all of our children and family and offsprings. Oh Allah, will ask you to grant the life of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad to every single one of us and the death of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad to all of us. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, on the last night of the majalis, will ask you to accept all of our majalis during the month of Muharram and Safar on your grace and mercy and extend the sawab of the majalis to the soul of maraji, ulama, shuhada and marhumin and marhumat. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, will ask you to grant us the tawfiq of the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussein in our life and the benefits of the shafa'a of the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran in the hereafter. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات. Allah.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. Brothers, please come forward. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Hussein rides on to the battlefield. On one hand is the Dhul Fiqar, carrying him on is Dhul Jinnah. Watching over him is Ali. Enemy strikes, Hussein fights, arrows rain down, he falls with might. Enemy strikes, Hussein fights, arrows rain down, he falls with might. La al-maut illa as-sa'ada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada. La al-maut illa as-sa'ada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada, la hayatan illa ash-shahada. Shimr walks onto the battlefield, dagger in his hand ready to strike. Hussein lays in the plain with no side. Shimr sits on the chest of Hussein. Oh, you Shimr, what will you do? Hussein is here to spread the truth. Oh, you Shimr, what will you do? Hussein is here to spread the truth. لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا حياة إلا Zainab standing there all alone, the burning tents rising in their flames. Up above there used to stand Hussein, his trampled body now lay in the plains. Up above there used to stand Hussein, his headless body now lay in the plains. Father Ali, our brave Abbas, brother Hussein, come see our loss. Father Ali, our brave Abbas, brother Hussein, come see our loss. لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة. Now it is done, all is done. Hussein has been slain and so have his sons. Nobody remains to help children. Nobody remains to help Zainab. With heads on spears, ill and in chains, dragged through the streets, thrown into shame. With heads on spears, ill and in chains, dragged through the streets, thrown into shame. لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة. لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا حياة إلا Sakina crying into the night, waiting for her father Hussein. Soldier walks in with head in arms. Sakina stops crying and recites, "Oh my father, where have you been? They ripped my ears, burned down the tents. Oh my father, where have you been? They ripped my ears, burned down the tents. لا أرى الموت إلا السعادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة. موت إلا السعادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة لا حياة إلا الشهادة. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there, leave me there. Hussein, bye, Hussein, bye, Hussein, bye, Hussein, bye. صلنا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين أيها الزين العابدين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر. السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي أيها الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي أيها العسكري. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان. العجل 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 عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك، واجعلنا جميعا من أعوانك وشيعتك جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let's make the intention. Remember all the marhumin, marhumat, those who have hajat, all of the ones who are facing difficulties and sicknesses or different diseases, and if they have asked for your du'as, and inshallah we can recite du'a faraj all together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma kun waliyik الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.